Melton.
Here.
Kate McKinney.
Here.
Deb Olson.
Here.
Erin Birch.
Here.
Marcia Schurz.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
And Robert is excused tonight. All right, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I so move.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to the informational session, board reports. I'll go over our committee of the whole that was held on August 5th. In attendance were Robert, Nathaniel, Kate, myself, and Paul. Marcia and Deb were excused. We discussed a referendum update that Dr. Aslan gave, explaining that CISA 10 is working on the final draft for the referendum update newsletter that will come out in the next couple weeks. He also mentioned that we are going to be having some walkthroughs through our buildings, 2 community walkthroughs on Tuesday, September 10th at 6 o'clock and Thursday, September 12th at 6 o'clock. The first one is held at the middle school and the second one is held at the elementary school. We also discussed the survey, which we will talk about more tonight. We discussed the updated safety plan that Mrs. Hanson provided based on some elements that were changed. The elements that prompted the changes were the standard response protocol, incorporating that throughout the plan, and suggested edits from Washburn County Emergency Management Director, as well as Wisconsin DPI training updates, and adding new Department of Justice requirements. The consensus was to move that to tonight's meeting. We had an overnight and out-of-state field trip request for FFA. That's been moved to tonight's meeting as well. We had a group of Neola policy updates that have been moved to tonight's meeting for the first reading. And our food policy update was tabled. We reviewed another group of job descriptions that we've been doing in batches, moved to tonight's meeting. And we tabled the revised Northwest Iceman Hockey Agreement, as we hadn't seen revisions for that yet. There was a financial update given by Mrs. Grindell, and it was a very short meeting. Does anyone have anything else to add about the Committee of the Whole? Nope. All right. We'll keep moving on to community comments. Do we have anyone signed up for community comments? No one has signed up. Just for informational purposes, if anyone has anything that they'd like to come before the board on any topic, we very much encourage that you use this time in our regular board meetings to do that, and we would love to hear any information you have to present or share. We'll be moving on to discussion and action items. Item A is personnel recommendations.
You have 4 resignations before you this evening. Amber Miller, 4K teacher, 1 year of service. Doreen Miller, with an effective date of June 30th, 2020, food service, 13 years of service. Jim Anderson, middle school basketball coach, and this is really remarkable. Approximately 45 years of coaching at various levels, so great service to the district. Ryan Dietrich, head volleyball coach, 5 months of service.
I'll first entertain a motion to approve these resignations.
I'll make the motion to approve the resignations.
I'll second.
All right. We'd like to thank you for all of your service to this district, and I second that 45 years of coaching is a pretty phenomenal achievement and dedicated example of somebody who's invested in our students and our district over his lifetime, and we very much appreciate that, as well as Mrs. Miller and her 13 years of service. Can we give them a round of applause, please? All right, we'll be moving on to our hirings.
Okay, so you have 5 recommendations before you this evening. Tate Nordback, middle school general education paraprofessional. That's a new position recommended by Mrs. Cobdy. Rachel Greshner, a 4K teacher, and that's a long-term substitute position replacing Amber Miller, recommended by Mr. Hopke. Matthew Graham, elementary school, 0.5 FTE custodian. That's an open position recommended by Mrs. Grindell. Anthony Lynn, middle school, 0.5 full-time equivalent custodian. That's an open position recommended by Mrs. Grindell. Wendy Miller, middle school special education teacher, replacing Tracy Moffel, recommended by Mr. Ham.
I'll entertain a motion to approve these hirings.
I'll make a motion to approve these hirings.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Welcome to our district. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay. Did I vote on the resignations? We did. Yes. Sorry. All right, well, moving on to item B, which is the acceptance of donations.
A number of donations coming before you this evening from Dick's Sporting Goods, Spooner Middle School Phi Ed Department, $1,613.35 for our Donors Choose project, and 4 youth 24-inch mountain bikes and 1 youth 16-inch mountain bike. From United Methodist Church, donated to Health Office for student hygiene needs, $50. From the Spooner Wesleyan Church, donation to Health Office for student clothing, $100. And a number of donations coming in to the food service accounts in memory of John Lowell Thorsness. And those people making those generous donations are Jamie Sinclair, Stan and Mary Jean Johannes, Bill and Iris Bush, Susan and Robert Stevens, Alice and Gerald Okonek. Jamie Sinclair for $50, Stan and Mary Jean Johannes, $25, Bill and Iris Bush, $25, Susan and Robert Stevens, $25, and Alice and Gerald Okonek, $15. From Spooner, from River Street, Spooner Health, Pinebrook Pit, Jocks Precision Auto Body, donations to Spooner the football program, $275 each. And from the Spooner Knights of Columbus, out of school family learning events, $50 out of school learning activities, summer school student supplies for families in need.
I'll entertain a motion to approve these donations.
I make a motion that we approve these donations.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for all of those donations. Very generous, and we are very grateful.
Thank you.
There are no fundraiser requests this evening, as well as facility use requests for out-of-district. So we'll be moving on to item E, to consider the school's perceptions draft survey questions.
So, after much ado and much waiting, you have the questions in draft form before you this evening. And in the ongoing work with the folks at School Perceptions, we would call this a draft, but pending your feedback on this, it would be quite close to being a completed document. An important next step after your feedback has been received and your concurrence with a final survey, this will go out to a company that does proofing professionally to make sure that it's proofed, then goes out to be printed. And we are right on time for our timeline where this would go out to residents, to households, early in October, and to be completed, and for you to have the results of this for your November meeting.
Do we want to start with a motion and then open for discussion, or can you discuss it before?
I think that you're good to discuss and see if there's any feedback.
Okay, so we'll open it up now for any feedback and your insight as to what you think of the survey, anything that you would like to see changed, or if you approve it the way that it's written.
The only change that I see that I'm sure that they would pick up is under the middle school portion, there's at the not sure, there should be, I think, a / need more information there in.
To be consistent.
Be
throughout.
consistent throughout the rest of the document.
I was really impressed by the survey and the layout. It presented information, was very clear, and I thought that it had enough choices. It was clear enough for me and cut and dry so that I think that people can see what the options are and then make a decision. And
When I look at option for the middle school, option 2, the investment amount, is that accurate, those numbers?
Yes, after you brought the SDS on hand for architecture and engineering, they have been through the figures on the preliminary estimate, and the middle school projects come down in price. In option 1, the price tag comes down $928,000 due to the new office area. The civil engineering work would not be as extensive as CISA 10 had originally anticipated. And option 2, replacement, SDS has indicated that $19.1 million, so the low end of that range that was initially estimated would be a solid cost on a new wing.
So would those numbers change if, let's say, the project were to start 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road versus using today's dollars?
The answer is yes, they would. They would change. We know that CISA has told us that the cost of raw materials and the cost of labor go up every year. So there would be, it'd be likely that there'd be an increase in the cost if it were to be projected out 2 years or more.
Okay.
was there any other feedback?
I guess I would just agree with you, Erin, that I felt like it was very straightforward. It gave people who may not be in touch with what's going on at the school every day a little background information about the buildings and about the process, and I think it clearly kind of outlined what different options would be, but also the historical aspect of what's been going on here as well. So I thought that was helpful for those readers.
And just looking at option 3, do nothing, maintain school as is. How dire is the small gym in the middle school? If that were to be the option, I mean, how long can we put off that building without doing nothing? And what are our options if those top 2 are not, we don't get that in the referendum?
Really good question. So the situation needs to be addressed in the near-term future, and there's no doubt about that. The structural engineer that the district worked with in the past had given some assurances that were good for 5 years, and we are through that time now. And for those that have seen the outside of that building lately, it degrades daily. Pieces are falling off of it. To get at the part of your question about what would happen if that were not part of a referendum, the district is going to have to figure out how to conduct that demolition and abatement on its own, because that will need to be addressed, either demolition and leaving it as green space, or demolition and rebuilding it into something else.
Thank you. And then the follow-up is, this next coming school year, is there, I haven't driven by there, so I'm not sure, is there on the outside a barrier so that we don't have people near that part of the structure?
There's not a barrier at this point. To date, while it degrades on a daily basis, there are small pieces that come off of that. If that situation were to change and we anticipated that there would be some greater safety concerns than exist at this time, we would absolutely install a barrier around that.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So do we feel comfortable sending it as is, to have editing done one more time and then off to printing? Or would somebody like to make a motion along those lines?
Maybe more of a consensus thing, not a...
We don't need to, okay.
Well, I stand corrected. They are able to make a motion, yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the survey as is with minor edits and send it off to printing. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Robert Mullen, Nathaniel Melton,
Yes.
Kate McKinney,
Yes.
Deb Olson,
Yes.
Aaron Birch,
Yes.
Marcia Schurz,
Yes.
Paul Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item F, which is to consider the updated safety plan, which we were presented with at the committee of the whole.
I'll make a motion that we approve what the committee as a whole recommended.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Move on to item G, which is the overnight and out-of-state field trip request for FFA.
I'll make a motion that we approve the request for out-of-state for the FFA.
Second.
Any discussion? And this again is a yearly trip that FFA has sent students on, and we've talked about potentially being able to have a report back to the board when they return based on their experience. All those in favor of approving this?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Move on to item H, for the first reading of Neola Policy Updates, Volume 28, Number 2.
I'll make a motion, we approve the recommendation by the committee, and I've heard no response either way from anybody.
So approve the first reading of these policies. I'll take a second.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to item I, which is the 2018-19 Restraint and Seclusion Report.
Can I provide a little bit of background on that for you? So you did not have this on your committee of the whole agenda 2 weeks ago. This is an annual requirement that you receive this, and it lists the number of incidents of seclusion and physical restraint. And Mr. Ham has broken it out by building where they've occurred. It also provides you information about students involved and number of students with disabilities involved in incidents. This is a document that your action would be to receive and place on file.
Thank you for the report. Mitch, thanks.
Any other discussion? Do we have consensus to receive and place? Oh, we'll take a motion that we receive and place this on file.
I make a motion that we accept this and put it on file.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Mitch. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll be moving on to item J, which is the second reading of the Student Handbook Update Recommendations. And these were,
I'll make a motion, we approve the recommendations for the second reading.
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item K is to consider the Dean of Students, psychologist, counselor / social worker, media specialist, district nurse, and community education job descriptions. I'll entertain a motion that we approve these job descriptions. I'll make the motion that we approve these job descriptions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, another batch in. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That concludes our agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I don't know if she needs that.
No worries. That's for the safety.
Oh, yes.
I'll give that to you before I forget.
Where am I? Okay, we're here.